In a world where shadows lurk in the hearts of the wicked, the Phantom Thieves of Persona 5 are notorious for their daring heists and righteous rebellion against corruption. But what if they were transposed into the high fantasy realms of Dungeons & Dragons? Imagine the Phantom Thieves, each with their unique skills and vibrant personalities and powerful persona magic, reimagined as adventurers in a land of swords and sorcery. From a charismatic rogue leader to a powerful sorcerer channeling raw arcane energy, these characters would bring the same flair, justice, and rebellion to any D&D campaign, turning the tide against tyranny and evil in a whole new way. Hi, I'm Creepercraft Guy, and this is a bit of a different video from what I would normally be doing, but I was really interested in doing something like this considering I'm on a bit of a D&D craze right now. I admit I'm not really as good at D&D as some of my peers that play this game with me, but I was still really interested in making this a concept. Since I'm a big fan of Persona 5, I figured this was a good place to start. To guide my decisions in translating the Phantom Thieves into D&D characters, I've established a few rules to ensure that their personalities and abilities are faithfully represented while adapting them into the fantasy setting. For example, first of all, I'm going to be assuming that all of these characters are at level 1 minimum, only so we don't confuse things by just giving them a crap ton of abilities. Each character's class and abilities will reflect their core personality traits and roles in the original game, and I'll focus on what makes them unique as Phantom Thieves while trying to stay true to the essence of their original personas. Their character class, background, and alignment will be chosen to highlight how they would interact in a typical D&D world, and I'll prioritize roleplay potential to keep their personalities intact in this new context. Each character's special abilities in the original game will be reinterpreted as spells, feats, or class features in Dungeons & Dragons. I'll choose abilities that capture the spirit of their persona powers while fitting in with the D&D mechanics. Lastly, the Phantom Thieves will be converted with an eye toward creating a balanced D&D party, ensuring they cover a range of roles like combat, magic, stealth, and support, much like they do in the original game. As one final note, this video will be including the characters from Persona 5, Persona 5 Royal, Persona 5 Scramble/Strikers, and Persona 5 Tactica. So if you have not played those games or know nothing about any of those games, please don't watch this because there will be spoilers involved. Also, I will not be including any characters from the gacha game Persona 5X because, well, that's not technically canon, and also there's way too many of them and we'd be here all day. So, yeah. By following these rules, I'll craft these versions of the Phantom Thieves that not only stay true to their original forms, but also feel like they belong in the world of Dungeons & Dragons. So let's get right into it, starting with Joker. Joker, or Ren Amamiya or Akira Kurusu, depending on the localization, is a human or tiefling for a darker aesthetic. His class is obviously a rogue, specifically an arcane trickster, and also a warlock, Pact of the Tome. This multi-classing reflects his persona abilities. As a background, we'll pick Charlatan for skills in deception and manipulation, and for an alignment, we'll do Chaotic Good. For some basic stats, we'll put his strength at 10, his dexterity at 15, a +1 if he's a human, a constitution of 12, an intelligence of 14, a wisdom of 13, and a charisma of 14. The skills I've decided to sink into him include acrobatics, stealth, deception, persuasion, insight, and sleight of hand. Now let's talk class features. As a rogue, he has access to sneak attack, which does extra damage when attacking with advantage or when an ally is within 5 feet of the target. He has cunning action, where he can use his bonus action to dash, disengage, or hide, and as an arcane trickster, he gains access to spells, including minor illusion, mage hand, disguise self, charm person, and mage armor. As a warlock, he has pact magic, which means limited spell slots, but he can cast spells like Hex and Eldritch Blast, and Pact of the Tome gives him additional cantrips and ritual spells from the warlock spell list. In terms of equipment, we can give him a rapier for finesse and daggers to be thrown, and as for armor, we'll give him light armor, e.g. leather armor. As for some tools, we can give him some thieves' tools and a disguise kit, and some magic items, we can consider things like a cloak of invisibility or a ring of spell storing for thematic relevance. We could also potentially give him a summon familiar ability to represent his various personas. Role-playing Joker would mainly involve using charm and deception to manipulate situations similar to how Joker navigates social interactions. It's important to reflect the duality of being a school student by day and Phantom Thief by night by your interactions. And as a team player, you should know to support allies through buffs and strategic planning while maintaining an air of mystery. As a backstory, Joker could have a past involving a corrupt ruling authority or noble, paralleling his fight against the corrupt in Persona 5. He could also create bonds with other party members that deepen as the story progresses, akin to his relationships in-game. For Morgana, or Mona, we need to create a unique character with a mix of feline agility, magical abilities, and a touch of mystery to them. For starters, their race will be, obviously, a tabaxi, because, he's a cat. For his class, we'll go with Rogue again, but this time we'll go Swashbuckler, and as for a dual class, we'll pick Bard, specifically College of Law. For a background, we'll pick Sage to reflect his knowledge around the metaverse and his quest for understanding his true nature, and for an alignment, we'll go with Chaotic Good. For ability scores, we'll give him a strength of 10, a dexterity of 15, which he gains a +2 from by being a tabaxi, a constitution of 12, an intelligence of 14, a wisdom of 13, and a charisma of 14, +1 from the tabaxi race. Some racial features he gets as a tabaxi include feline agility, which doubles his speed for a turn before he has to stand still for a turn after, cat's claws, which give him climbing speed and natural weapons, and cat's talent, which gives him proficiency in perception and stealth. For some skills, I've gone with acrobatics, stealth, arcana, perception, performance, and persuasion. The class features he gets as a swashbuckler rogue include sneak attack, cunning action, fancy footwork, which means if he makes a melee attack against a creature, that creature can't make an opportunity attack against him for the rest of the turn, and rakish audacity, which adds his charisma modifier to initiative rolls, and he doesn't need advantage on stealth rolls to use sneak attack if no other creatures are within 5 feet of him. As a College of Law Bard, he can use his bonus action to give an ally an inspiration die using Bardic Inspiration, and he has access to a variety of support and utility spells. He can also use Cutting Words to use his Bardic Inspiration to subtract from an enemy attack roll, ability check, or damage roll. Some Bard spells he could have could include Vicious Mockery, Prestidigitation, and obviously Healing Word, Dissonant Whispers, and Fairy Fire. For equipment, it's pretty easy. We give him a cutlass or a rapier, because that's what he has in the game, and a slingshot. For an armor, we'll give him light armor, like before. We'll also give him thieves' tools and a musical instrument, like a lute. And for some magic items, we can give him a bag of tricks for summoning creatures, or a ring of evasion for extra agility. For his abilities to represent his persona Zorro, besides Summon Familiar, he can also have illusion spells like Disguise Self or Mirror Image, and considering he often acts as a healer in the team, it's best to focus on healing spells like Healing Word or Cure Wounds. For some role-playing tips, Morgana is driven by a desire to discover his true nature, so incorporate that curiosity into your role-playing. He's protective and quite boastful, especially about his skills and knowledge, but he does care a lot about his friends and has a quirky and often humorous side, which you can reflect in interactions. For some backstory hooks, we can say Morgana is on a journey to discover his origins, which is basically what happened in Persona 5 and can tie into the larger campaign, and as a sage, he might have knowledge about ancient or arcane lore that becomes relevant to the party's quest, just like he has the same sort of knowledge with the metaverse. Ryuji is known for being boisterous, loyal, and tough, and for his physical prowess, fiery temper, and strong sense of justice. His race would be a half-orc for his strength and resilience, and his class would be Barbarian Fighter, specifically Path of the Zealot and Champion. His background would, quite obviously, be Athlete, to reflect his history as a track star, and his alignment would be Chaotic Good, just as it is with Joker and Morgana. For ability scores, we'll give him a 15 to Strength, a Dexterity of 12, a Constitution of 14, an Intelligence of 8, a Wisdom of 10, and a Charisma of 13. He also gets a +2 to Strength and a +1 to Constitution from his half-orc race. He also gets Relentless Endurance as a half-orc, which means when reduced to 0 hit points, he drops to 1 hit point instead once per long rest. He also gets Savage Attacks, which means when he scores a critical hit with a melee weapon attack, he rolls one of the weapon's damage dice one additional time and adds it to the extra damage. He also gets Menacing, which means he's proficient in intimidation skills. For some skills, I've gone with Athletics, Intimidation, Survival, and Perception. As a Path of the Zealot Barbarian, Ryuji gets Rage, which means he enters in an angry state as a bonus action, gaining advantages on strength checks and saving throws, and bonus damage on melee weapon attacks. He also gets Unarmored Defense, which means his AC or armor class is 10 plus his Dex modifier plus his Constitution modifier when he's not wearing armor. He also gets Reckless Attack, which means he gains advantage on melee weapon attack rolls, but grants advantage to all attack rolls against him until his next turn. Divine Fury, which means he adds extra radiant or necrotic damage to his first attack each turn while raging, and Warrior of the Gods, which means reviving him is easier and doesn't require material components. As a fighter champion, he also gets skills like Second Wind, where he can regain hit points equal to 1d10 plus his fighter level once per short rest, and as a fighting style will give him Great Weapon Fighting for additional damage. He can also use Action Surge, which means he takes one additional action on his turn once per short rest or long rest, and his weapon attacks score a critical hit on a roll of 19 or 20. In addition, we could also give him Zealot Divine Fury to deal radiant or necrotic damage in reflection of Captain Kidd. For a weapon, he obviously wields a pipe in the game, but we can also give him a great sword for heavy hitting attacks, maul, or warhammer. For armor, he can be unarmored because of his unarmored defense, or a simple breastplate for thematic purposes. For tools, he doesn't really need any, but he can use any athletic gear or weapons to fit his background, maybe give him some of the same stuff that Joker and Mona had. And for magic items, we can give him things like a belt of giant strength or gauntlets of ogre power to further boost his strength. To roleplay Ryuji, you basically just want to play a traditional barbarian. Ryuji is quick to anger and often charges into situations without thinking, which could be reflected with a brash and impulsive character. He's also, like Mona, loyal and protective. Despite his rough exterior, he deeply cares about his friends and will go to great lengths to protect them, and he doesn't sugarcoat his words. So when talking, be blunt and straightforward, sometimes to a fault. For some backstory hooks, like in Persona 5, Ryuji can have a backstory as a former athlete or Olympian whose career was ruined, driving him to find a new purpose as an adventurer. His rebellion against corrupt authority figures could lead him to join the party of adventurers fighting against tyranny or injustice, and his bond with the party could be like the Phantom Thieves, emphasizing teamwork and camaraderie. Ann would be a half-elf for her charisma, beauty, and versatility, as well as her role as a supportive and passionate team member. She's known for her compassionate nature and fierce resolve, often using fire-based attacks through her persona Carmen. For her class, she would be a Sorcerer Rogue, specifically an Arcane Trickster Rogue, and a Draconic Bloodline Red Dragon for Sorcerer. As a background, we'll go with Entertainer, reflecting her modelling career and charm, and for an alignment, we'll go with Neutral Good, because she's not nearly as chaotic as the three boys I just mentioned. For ability scores, we'll give her 10 Strength, 14 Dexterity, 13 Constitution, 12 Intelligence, 8 Wisdom, 15 Charisma, and 14 Dexterity. She also gets a +2 to Charisma from being a half-elf and a +1 for Dexterity. Some racial features she gets as a half-elf include Dark Vision, which means she can see in darkness up to 60 feet, Fey Ancestry, which gives her advantage on saving throws against being charmed and magic can't put her to sleep, and Skill Versatility, where she gains proficiency in 2 additional skills, for which I've chosen Deception and Persuasion. For some skills that work for her, we've got Deception, Persuasion, Acrobatics, Performance, Sleight of Hand, and Perception. For class features, as a Draconic Bloodline Red Dragon Sorcerer, she gets Draconic Resilience, which means her hit point maximum increases by 1 for each Sorcerer level, and when not wearing armor, her AC equals 13 plus her Dex modifier. For her elemental affinity, we've obviously gone with fire because her persona is fire, and she can add her charisma modifier to fire damage spells and gain resistance to fire damage. Considering her kit in Persona 5 is primarily magic based, I think this works. She also gets sorcerer spells that focus on fire-based and charming spells, so things like Firebolt, Prestidigitation, Minor Illusion, Burning Hands, Charm Person, and Mage Armor, potentially Scorching Ray and Invisibility with higher levels. As an Arcane Trickster Rogue, she gets Sneak Attack, Cunning Action, Mage Hand Legerdemain, I hope I'm saying that right, which she can use Mage Hand to manipulate objects or pickpocket from a distance, and for some rogue spells we can give her, again, Mage Hand, which is enhanced by Arcane Trickster, Disguise Self, and Silent Image. For some equipment, we can give her a light crossbow and a rapier, but obviously she uses a whip in game, so if there's anything in D&D that's like that, maybe give her that. For an armor, we'll give her light armor like studded leather, though she'll rely on draconic resilience more than anything. For tools, we'll give her a disguise kit and thieves' tools, and for magic items, we can give her things like a cloak of fire resistance or a ring of evasion to enhance her survivability and agility. To roleplay her, Ann cares deeply for her friends and often acts as a moral compass, always striving to do what's right, so make her compassionate and loyal. She's also fierce and determined. Despite her gentle appearance, she has a fierce determination to fight against justice, especially when it involves protecting those she cares about. She can also use her natural charisma to navigate social situations, whether it's through charm, deception, or persuasion. For some backstory hooks, Ann's background as an entertainer can be tied into the story, perhaps involving encounters with nobility, artists, or social elites. Like her motivation in Persona 5 and like the motivations of the other Phantom Thieves, Ann might be driven by a desire to seek justice against those who wronged her or her loved ones. She often struggles with her identity and how others perceive her, which can be an ongoing theme in her character development. Considering Yusuke is voiced by Matthew Mercer, this one kind of feels the most relevant. Yusuke in Persona 5 is known for his artistic flair, cool demeanor, and precision in combat. With that in mind, we will make him a high elf to reflect his artistic nature and affinity for magic, and his class will be Eldritch Knight Fighter and Blade Singer Wizard. For a background, it's again very easy. We'll go with Artist or Guild Artisan to reflect his dedication to the arts, and for his alignment, we'll go with Lawful Neutral. For his ability scores, we will give him 10 Strength, 15 Dexterity, 13 Constitution, 14 Intelligence, 12 Wisdom, and 8 Charisma. Additionally, from being a High Elf, he gains a +2 to Dexterity and a +1 to Intelligence. Some racial features he gets as a High Elf include Dark Vision, Keen Senses which give him proficiency in Perception, Fey Ancestry, 1 cantrip, for which I've gone with Ray of Frost to reflect his ice abilities, and an extra language. This can be up to you. For skills, we should focus on Acrobatics, Insight, Perception, Performance, and Arcana. For his class features, as an Eldritch Knight, he gets Dueling for bonus damage when wielding a single weapon, Second Wind, Action Surge, Spellcasting, which gives him an access to mix of offensive and defensive spells, focusing on Abjuration and Evocation, and Weapon Bond, where he can bond with a weapon, making it impossible for him to be disarmed and allowing him to summon it back to his hand at will. As a Blade Singer Wizard, he gets Blade Song, which boosts his AC, walking speed, and concentration checks, and adds his intelligence modifier to his AC while using it. For spellcasting, he gets a wide range of spells, and should focus on those that reflect his ice powers and artistic creativity. Things like Ray of Frost and Minor Illusion for cantrips, Shield, Ice Knife, and Absorb Elements for first level spells, and potentially Mirror Image and Misty Step for higher level ones. For his equipment, he uses a katana in-game, so I'm not really sure what that would reflect. For now, I'm going to give him a rapier for his precise fighting and elegant style. For armor, we'll give him light armor again, but if he's using Blade Song for the AC bonus, he probably doesn't need any specific armor either. For tools, we'll give him a painter's supply and calligrapher's tools, and for magic items, we'll give him things like a ring of spell storing or a cloak of protection. For role-playing tips, Yusuke is deeply passionate about his art, often to the point of obsession, so play him artistic and aloof. He may come off as distant and overly focused in his work, so make sure you act that way towards other party members. He is elegant and refined, so he carries himself with a certain grace and sophistication which should be reflected in his mannerisms and speech. And despite his aloofness, Yusuke cares deeply for his friends and will go to great lengths to help them. For a backstory, Yusuke could be traveling in search of inspiration for his next masterpiece, leading him into various adventures, such as meeting the other Phantom Thieves. Makoto, from her fighting style in the original game, was not that difficult to build. She is a variant human to reflect her well-rounded abilities, and for a class we obviously have to go with Monk. Alongside Monk, we'll also make her a Paladin. As a background, we'll go Acolyte, reflecting her strong morality and dedication to justice, and for alignment, we'll go with Lawful Good, because she's easily the most lawful good of the Phantom Thieves. For ability scores, we will go with Strength at 13, 14 Dexterity, Constitution of 12, Intelligence of 15 plus 1 from being a variant human, a 10 Wisdom, and a 14 Charisma, again plus 1 from being variant human. Some other stuff she gets from being a variant human include proficiency in one skill of her choice, for which I have gone with Insight, and Tough Feet to enhance her durability and resilience, reflecting her ability to withstand social pressure and, well, physical pressure. She can also use an extra language, which she can speak, read, and write one extra language of her choice, just like Yusuke. Again, I will leave this up to you. Some skills that align with Makoto's character would be Insight, Investigation, Athletics, Persuasion, Religion, and Perception. For some class features, her Paladin class is Oath of Vengeance. This gives her Divine Sense, which lets her detect the presence of strong, evil, or powerful good within 60 feet, Lay on Hands, which allows her to heal wounds with a pool of healing powers, Defense as a fighting style, a Divine Smite, which empowers weapon strikes with radiant damage, Vow of Enmity, which gives her advantage on attack rolls against a specific kind of target, and Relentless Avenger, which allows her to move up to half her speed as part of an opportunity attack, helping her stay on target. As a monk, she is Way of the Kensei. She can use martial arts to make unarmed strikes or use monk weapons with dexterity and gain extra unarmed attacks as a bonus action. She gets unarmored defense, Kensei weapons, which she can choose 2 weapons to become monk weapons, allowing her to make unarmed strikes with them. An agile parry, which means when she makes an unarmed strike as part of the attack action while holding a Kensei weapon, she can add +2 to her AC for the rest of the turn. And Death Strike, which means she can spend a key point to add extra damage to a weapon attack. Makoto could also use features like Vow of Enmity and Divine Smite to reflect Johanna's punishing justice. For equipment, it's quite obvious we need to give her something along the lines of Brass Knuckles, not just to be flavoured for her monk abilities, but because that's what she uses in the game. Alongside that, she could also potentially use a heavy crossbow as a ranged weapon. For armor, again, she doesn't need it. She relies more on unarmored defense and Kensei agility for sustainability, but a simple breastplate could work as well. She doesn't need any specific tools, but she might carry things like a holy symbol or religious text as a paladin. For some magic items, she could also have a ring of protection or a cloak of resistance to enhance her durability. To roleplay her, she takes her duties seriously and strives to uphold justice and order, often acting as a voice of reason for her group. She approaches problems with strategic and methodical mindset, often thinking several steps ahead. She's basically the brains of the group and has a deep sense of what's good and what's bad, and her actions are driven by a desire to protect others and uphold her principles. As a backstory, she could be driven by a desire to bring justice to those who have wronged her or her loved ones, fitting well with the Oath of Vengeance. As a former leader or someone with significant responsibility, she might be searching for a way to reconcile her past decisions with her current decisions. And her journey might involve finding the balance between upholding the law and showing compassion, reflecting her struggles in Persona 5. Futaba mainly plays a support role outside of combat in Persona 5, so building her as a functional character was not easy, but this is what I came up with. For starters, her race would be a gnome, specifically a forest gnome, to reflect her intelligence, small stature, and affinity for tinkering with things. For a class, I've gone with Rogue Wizard, again, Arcane Trickster Rogue, and School of Divination Wizard. For a background, I've gone with Sage, and for alignment, I've gone for Chaotic Good. For ability scores, we will go with 7 Strength, 14 Dexterity, 12 Constitution, 15 Intelligence, 11 Wisdom, and 13 Charisma. From being a forest gnome, she also gets a +2 to Intelligence and a +1 to Charisma. As some racial features, she gets Gnome Cunning, which means she gets advantage on all Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma saving throws against magic, Natural Illusionist, which means she naturally knows the minor illusion cantrip, Speak with Small Beasts, which is exactly as it sounds, and Dark Vision. Hi, this is Jack from the future talking, because I realized only while I was editing this that I completely forgot to talk about Futaba's skills. So, very quickly going over them, I gave her Arcana, Investigation, Sleight of Hand, Stealth, History, and Perception. So, yeah, I'm sorry about that. For class features, as an arcane trickster rogue, she gets the same stuff that Joker and Mona have done, including sneak attack, cunning action, mage hand, legerdemain, and some rogue spells. For some first level spells, it might be best to consider things like Disguise Self and Silent Image. For her wizard spells, as a School of Divination wizard, she can halve the time and cost of copying divination spells into her spellbook using Divination Savant. She also gets Portent, which lets her roll 2 d20s after a long rest and replace any attack roll, saving throws, or ability checks with one of these rolls. Her focus on divination, utility, and support skills also allow her to gather information and assist the party. For wizard spells, some cantrips we could give her include Mage Hand, Minor Illusion, and Prestidigitation, and for first level spells, Detect Magic, Identify Shield, and Find Familiar. Some higher level spells to focus on would also include Mirror Image, Misty Step, Invisibility, Clairvoyance, Counterspell, and Fireball for her occasional offense needs. Clairvoyance and Detect Magic could also be added to reflect her persona's ability to gather information and analyze things. For equipment, we'll give her a light crossbow and a dagger for close encounters, even though she doesn't really fight. For armor, we can go with something simple, but it can be upgraded in case you need higher AC for her. For tools, we'll give her Thief Tools and Tinker's Tools, mainly for a combination of hacking, lockpicking, and gadgetry. For magic items, we should consider a Headband of Intellect to boost her intelligence and a Cloak of Elvenkind to add her stealth. Futaba is highly introverted and may struggle with social interactions, so she should be played as someone who prefers to stick to the background and observe things from a distance. She's also incredibly intelligent and resourceful, and comes up with the creative solutions to problems often involving her special technology or magic. And again, like the rest of the Phantom Thieves, she's also loyal to her friends despite her introversion. In Persona 5, Futaba spent much of her life isolated, leading her to develop her skills in magic and technology as a means of coping with her solitude, which is why she's the Hermit Arcana. In role-playing her and her backstory, you should make her a hermit and a scholar. Her journey might involve uncovering hidden knowledge or secrets either related to her own past or a broader mystery in the campaign, and a key aspect of her development could involve her overcoming her fears and learning to trust and connect with others. Even in her own game, Haru is a very interesting combative character. As a person, she's very gentle, loves gardening, but underneath all that, she's very powerful, especially in what she wields in combat, like a giant axe and grenade launchers. So it really comes down to making a character who is both passive, but also powerful when the need arises. Like Arn, Haru would be a half-elf to represent that charm to her, as well as the sort of nobility that she has. As a class, however, instead of what Arn has, she would be a Battlemaster fighter and a Circle of Spores druid. For a background, considering she's a rich girl in the original game, she would be a noble, and her alignment would be neutral good. For stats, we will give her 14 strength, 13 dexterity, 12 constitution, 10 intelligence, 15 wisdom, and 14 charisma. A +1 to wisdom and a +2 to charisma from her half-elf ancestry. She also gets all the additional racial features of a half-elf that I just mentioned, including dark vision, fey ancestry, and skill versatility. For skill versatility, I've chosen insight and persuasion. For skills, we've gone with persuasion, insight, nature, survival, history, and animal handling. For some class features, as a Battlemaster fighter, she has combat superiority, maneuvers, second wind, action surge, and extra attack. Combat superiority, she can learn maneuvers that grant special combat abilities reflecting her deadly fighting style, and for some maneuvers she can have disarming attack, riposte, and sweeping attack. Second wind lets her regain hit points, action surge lets her take an additional action, and she gets extra attack. For Druid, she gets Halo of Spores, which lets her deal necrotic damage to enemies within 10 feet of her using her reaction, and Symbiotic Entity, which temporarily lets her have additional hit points and extra necrotic damage with melee attacks. For her Druid spell, she gets Thorn Whip and, I hope I'm saying this right, Shillelagh for cantrips, and for first level spells, Entangle and Goodberry. For higher level spells, she can also get Barkskin, Moonbeam, Plant Growth, and Animate Dead. For weapons, quite obviously she gets a battle axe, and a hand crossbow as a stand-in for her grenade launcher because surprisingly, D&D does not have grenade launchers. For armor, we'll actually give her something a little buffer and give her medium armor. For tools, we'll give her a herbalism kit, and for magic items, she gets a staff of the woodlands and a periapt of wound closure. Haru is well-mannered and polite, often acting with grace and consideration even in difficult situations, so keep that in mind when you're role-playing her. Also, despite her soft exterior, as I mentioned, Haru has this inner beast and strength and determination that shines through, especially when the people she cares for are in danger. She also feels a strong sense of responsibility due to her noble upbringing and wealthy background, but also struggles with the expectations placed on her by her family. She might be navigating the pressures and responsibilities of her noble heritage, possibly dealing with family issues or corporate intrigue. Her connection to plants and the natural world would drive her to protect nature or seek out ancient druidic knowledge, and like in the original game, she might be struggling with her desire to live up to her family's expectations while also forging her own path and helping others. Akechi is quite remarkably different from everyone else in this video. He has sharp intellect and a conflicted nature, with a duality as both an ally and an antagonist. He has cool detective skills, a powerful, nasty combat style using swords and guns, and his connection to both his personas Robin Hood and Loki, which represents his dual nature of both righteousness and chaos. With that in mind, I am also going to make Akechi a half-elf to represent this versatility, and unlike everyone else I've discussed so far, I will give him 3 classes: Mastermind Rogue, Hexblade Warlock, and Battlemaster Fighter. As a background, I've gone for Urban Bounty Hunter for his detective work and his pursuit of justice, as well as the fact that in Persona 5 he basically is Shido's personal bounty hunter. His alignment is lawful evil, but it could also be neutral evil depending on what you best think. For ability scores, I've given him 10 strength, 15 dexterity with a +1 from half-elf, 12 constitution, 14 intelligence, 13 wisdom, and 14 charisma with a +2 from half-elf. And he also gets dark vision, fey ancestry, and skill versatility, for which I have chosen for skill versatility, deception, and persuasion. For his skills, I've gone with deception, persuasion, investigation, insight, perception, and athletics. Now, his combination of warlock and rogue reflects the duality of his personas, being one charming and noble and the other cunning and ruthless, while the Battlemaster side maneuvers represent his strategic mind and his ability to control the flow of both his plans and in battle. As a Mastermind Rogue, he has Master of Intrigue, where he gains proficiency with the Disguise Kit, Forgery Kit, and 1 gaming set. He can also unerringly mimic the speech patterns of a creature he hears. He's also a Master of Tactics, where he can use the Help action as a bonus action and use it from 30 feet away to aid an ally in attack rolls or ability checks, and of course, he also has Sneak Attack. As a Hexblade Warlock, he can curse a target, increasing his damage against them and gaining hit points if they die, Hex Warrior, where he can use Charisma for attack and damage rolls with weapons, Eldritch Invocations, specifically Devil's Sight and Misty Visions, and Pact of the Blade to create a magical weapon in his hand, allowing versatility in combat. And as a Battlemaster Fighter, he can use maneuvers to gain combat advantages like Precision Attack, Riposte, and Disarming Attack, and he also gets Second Wind and Action Surge. For a weapon, we're going to be giving him a longsword, even though that's not technically what his weapon is, but it's the closest we've got, and a dagger for good measure. He wears medium armor like a breastplate, and his tools include a disguise kit, a forgery kit, and a set of dice or cards of your choosing. As I mentioned before, due to being a Mastermind Rogue, he has proficiency with these. Some magic items he could carry could be a Cloak of Shadows to enhance his stealth and a Ring of Evasion to avoid his damage. Akechi presents himself as charming and trustworthy, but underneath he harbours darker intentions, so it's important to use your charisma to manipulate and deceive others. He struggles with a sense of justice and his personal vendettas, leading to moments of intense inner conflict, so maybe you could consider that when picking his flaws. He's also calculated and strategic and thinks several steps ahead, just like Makoto, using his abilities to manipulate his situations. For backstory hooks, Akechi could be driven by a personal mission to uncover or manipulate the truth, often operating on the fringes of law and morality. Provided everyone is okay with you heading in this direction, you could also potentially have him roleplay as a traitor against the group, before either returning later after a redemption arc or just straight up leaving the party in exchange for a different character. But I'll leave that entirely up to you. One of the parts of Persona 5 Royal that gets brought up quite often is how similar a sense of justice Sumire has to Joker. She's a talented athlete and gymnast who works hard, has many aspirations, and her journey involves overcoming her personal struggles and embracing herself for who she truly is. With that in mind, she's also going to be a human just as Joker was, but she will be a monk and a fighter, specifically Way of the Open Hand and Battle Master again. She has athlete as her background just like Ryuji, and her alignment would be chaotic good. She's normally just a lawful good character, but I feel that as a Phantom Thief and as Sumire and not Kasumi, she's more along the lines of chaotic. For ability scores, I've given her 14 strength, 15 dexterity, 12 constitution, 10 intelligence, 13 wisdom, and 8 charisma. As a human though, she gets a +1 to all ability scores, so she technically has a total of 15, 16, 13, 11, 14, and 9. She also speaks 2 languages, Common and 1 additional language of the player's choice, which I have gone for either Celestial or Elvish for her. For her skills, I have gone with Athletics, Acrobatics, Insight, Performance, Perception, and Stealth. For her class features, as a Way of the Open Hand monk, she can use her Wisdom modifier for her AC when not wearing armor, and she can use Dexterity instead of Strength for unarmed strikes and monk weapons. She can make 1 unarmed strike as a bonus action after using the attack action, and with her open hand technique, she can utilize special techniques in combat that can knock a creature prone, push it away, or prevent it from taking reactions. She also has access to Ki. She can harness Ki to perform special techniques like Flurry of Blows, Patient Defense, and Step of the Wind, and she can deflect missiles. This reduces damage from ranged attacks and potentially catches any missile-related spells. As a Battlemaster fighter, she also gets combat superiority, maneuvers like disarming attack, riposte and precision attack, second wind, and action surge. For equipment, a short sword or rapier would be her primary weapon, and a hand crossbow should be considered for ranged weapons. She can also unarmed strike. She doesn't need armor because she benefits from unarmored defense, but it's best to carry light armor for times where you might actually need it. For tools, we can give her an athletics kit or acrobatics gear for performing stunts and gymnastic feats, and for magic items, we can give her a belt of giant strength to enhance her physical prowess, or braces of defense to increase her AC. Sumire is driven by her goals and dreams, so it's best to play her as somebody who works hard, has much dedication, and perseveres even in the face of challenges. She has a very complex emotional background dealing with loss and expectations placed upon her, and this should be reflected in her interactions with the other characters, showing vulnerability and strength. She also values her friendships and will go out of her way to support her allies just as all the other Phantom Thieves do. For a backstory, she could be dealing with the legacy of her sister who was also an athlete, and how that influences her drive and feelings of the inadequacy. Her journey may involve self-discovery, finding her own path separate from these expectations that have been forced upon her, and a lot of her arc might revolve around overcoming her past failures or her inner struggles, leading to opportunities for growth and personal victory. As one last side note, I'm not including Maruki in this list because he's not technically a Phantom Thief even though he does have a persona, but it might be interesting to have him as an antagonist in a potential Persona 5 based D&D campaign, specifically to revolve around Sumire and Akechi's ideals. With her role as an AI in Persona 5 Strikers, Sophia was one of the more interesting characters to make for this list. As someone with a strong sense of compassion and an even more strong desire to help others program within her, she embodies themes of hope, curiosity, and her pursuit to understand humanity. With this in mind, Sophia is, obviously, a Warforged, and her class is Sorcerer and Artificer, specifically Divine Soul and Alchemist. Her background I've gone for Sage to represent her quest for knowledge, and her alignment is Chaotic Good. For ability scores and skills, I've gone for 12 strength, 14 dexterity, 15 constitution, 16 intelligence, 10 wisdom, and 13 charisma. She gets a +1 to constitution and intelligence from her Warforged bonus. As a Warforged, Sophia has constructed resilience. She gets advantage on saving throws against being poisoned, resistance to poison damage, and the immunity to become diseased. She can also enter a state of inactivity for 6 hours to gain the benefits of a long rest, and with integrated protection, she can integrate armor into her body, gaining a base AC of 16 or 1 plus her dexterity modifier if she wears armor. Hi, it's me from the time machine again. I also forgot to talk about Sophia's skills. I don't really know how I missed this, considering I did put it down in my script for this, but if you want the short version, she gets skills in Arcana, History, Insight, Investigation, Medicine, and Persuasion. Alright, I'm off now. As an alchemist artificer, Sophia has proficiency with alchemist supplies, which can be used to create potions and elixirs, mirroring her support abilities in Strikers. She also gains access to spells like Healing Word, Cure Wounds, Revivify, and Greater Restoration to reflect her supportive role. She also gets Alchemical Savant, which lets her gain additional benefits when she creates potions and elixirs such as increased healing or damage, and Experimental Elixir creates a special potion with random effects to showcase her creativity and adaptability. As a Divine Soul Sorcerer, she can draw magic from a divine source, granting her access to both the Sorcerer and Cleric spell list. She's favoured by the gods, which means when she rolls a 1 or a saving throw, she can re-roll it and must use the new roll. Some Divine Soul spells she gets can include Bless, Lesser Restoration, and Heroism. For equipment, Sophia uses a yo-yo as a weapon in Strikers, but obviously that kind of thing is impossible without a homebrew, so for weapons we're going to give her a quarterstaff and a light crossbow for ranged attacks. For armor we'll give her light or medium armor, but this is only optional if you don't want to use her integrated protection. And for tools we'll give her alchemist supplies and a set of tinker's tools. For magic items we should consider things like a Pearl of Power to regain spell slots or a Cloak of Protection to enhance AC and saving throws. To roleplay her, you kind of just need to play a standard Warforged. She's an inquisitive and eager robot who wants to understand the world around her, so play as someone who is always asking questions and wanting to learn things. You should also emphasize her role as the party's helper and support, using her spells and abilities to aid teammates in and out of combat. As a backstory, Sophia might be on a quest to understand what it means to be human, seeking knowledge and experiences that deepen her connection of the world and finding out where she originally came from. Uncovering her origins or finding the purpose behind her creation, possibly leading to deeper mysteries about her existence, is a good way to take a character arc with her. And driven by her compassion, she might be compelled to protect those in need, constantly looking for ways to help for others. So play her as sort of a sympathetic role as well. Zenkichi is a very pragmatic, down-to-earth, grounded character despite his complex backstory, and has a strong dedication to justice just as the other Phantom Thieves do. He will be a human, and his class will be an inquisitive rogue and an Oath of Vengeance paladin. For his background we'll go with investigator because he's a detective, and his alignment will be lawful good. For his ability scores, being a human, he gets +1 to all of them, which gives him a stat roundup of 15, 16, 14, 12, 10, and 9. He, like Sumire and Joko, also gets to speak Common and one additional language of their choice. For him, though, I would consider maybe Infernal. For skills, will give him Investigation, Insight, Perception, Athletics, Persuasion, and Stealth. And for his class features, as an inquisitive rogue he can use Cunning Action, Insight for fighting, which means when he sees a creature he can use his bonus action to make an insight check against them, gaining advantage on his next attack roll, Eye for Detail, which means he gets proficiency in the investigation skill and has advantage on checks to find hidden creatures and objects, and Steady Eye, which adds to his proficiency bonus to initiative rolls. As an Oath of Vengeance paladin, he also has Divine Sense, Lay on Hands, Oath spells, such as Hunter's Mark and Misty Step, Channel Divinity, Vow of Enmity, where he gains advantage on attack rolls against a chosen creature, and Aura of Protection, where he can add his Charisma modifier to all saving throws made by himself and friendly creatures within 10 feet. For weapons, we'll give him a great sword, and for ranged weapons, we'll give him a hand crossbow. He'll also have a dagger for stealth attacks. For armor, we'll give him a medium armor like a chain shirt, but eventually this can be upgraded to heavy armor if he levels up in his paladin. For tools, we'll give him thief tools and investigator's kit, and for magic items, we should consider things like a cloak of protection or a ring of evasion. To roleplay him, Zenkichi is dedicated to uncovering the truth and fighting against powerful corruption, just as the other Phantom Thieves are, but from a more adult perspective. So not only should you play him as a more mature character, but you should portray him as a character who is serious and unwavering in his moral convictions. He has a realistic view of the world, but is often tempered by his cynical experiences. But despite this, you should also potentially play Zenkichi as a mentor figure, showing a guiding and protective side, stepping in to offer advice or assistance to his allies, especially those who are younger. For a backstory, he could be pursuing a corrupt figure just as he is in Strikers that wronged him or took his family away from him. His role as a detective may lead him to investigate various mysteries, possibly involving magical elements or criminal organizations, and for some floor stuff, he might struggle with his past failures in his investigations. Something that could potentially be ironed out by his teammates. Given the similar combat style between Dungeons & Dragons and Persona 5 Tactica, you'd think that Erina and Toshiro would be the two easiest characters to build, but that was not the case. For Erina, I focused on her strong leadership, combat skills, and ability to inspire others within the heat of a fight, and I made her a half-elf bard paladin, specifically College of Valor and Oath of Devotion. For background, I went for Soldier, reflecting her combat experience and leadership skills, and for alignment, I went for Chaotic Good. For her ability scores, I went for 14 Strength, 12 Dexterity, 13 Constitution, 10 Intelligence, 8 Wisdom, and 16 Charisma. As a half-elf, she gets a +2 to Charisma and +1 to 2 other ability scores. For this, I have given her a +1 to Strength and a +1 to Constitution. She also has Dark Vision, Fey Ancestry, and Skill Versatility, for which I have put into Persuasion and Insight. For skills, I have given her Athletics, Persuasion, Insight, Intimidation, Performance, and Survival. As a College of Valor Bard, she can use a bonus action to inspire allies with Bardic Inspiration, giving them a bonus to their ability checks, attack rolls, and saving throws, and Combat Inspiration, which means allies can use her Bardic Inspiration to add to their damage rolls. She has access to spells to enhance combat, support, and healing abilities such as Healing Word, Heroism, Thunderwave, and Cure Wounds, an extra attack which she gets at 6th level. She can attack twice instead of once when she takes the attack action. She also gets Song of Rest, which helps allies regain additional hit points during short rest. As an Oath of Devotion Paladin, she gets Divine Sense, Lay on Hands, Oath spells like Protection from Good and Evil, or Evil and Good rather, Sanctuary, and Lesser Restoration. Her Channel Divinity is Sacred Weapon, which adds to her Charisma modifier to attack rolls for 1 minute, and her Aura of Protection adds her Charisma modifier to all saving throws made by her and creatures within 10 feet, just as it was with Zenkichi. For her weapon, she gets a long polearm-like weapon, I'll let you be the judge of which one, and a hand crossbow or lute as additional weapons for ranged attacks. For armor, I've given her medium armor, but later that can be upgraded to heavy armor as she gets more levels in Paladin. For tools, a musical instrument like a lute or a flute, for bard abilities, and a set of gaming tools or artisan tools to represent her practical skills would be good. And for magic items like a cloak of protection or a ring of protection would help. Erina is a strong and charismatic leader who motivates her allies and rallies them in times of danger like a real drill sergeant. She shows a fierce determination to protect her friends and the innocent, balanced with a caring and empathetic nature. And, using her tactical mindset to make strategic decisions in combat, she combines bardic support with paladin martial prowess. For a backstory, it's kind of up to interpretation, but in general she should be motivated by a desire to combat the oppression and protect the innocents, leading her to gain a group of allies to fight against a common foe. Her backstory, like Sophia's, should probably be shrouded in mystery, with some hints throughout the story suggesting to what it might be. However, it might not be good to run her and Sophia in the same story, as to not have overlap with these. As a soldier, she might have been involved in significant battles or conflicts, shaping her view of honor, duty, and justice. For Toshiro, I took quite a different approach, and I will say in advance that the class I have given to him is not one that I have much experience in, and I'm not quite sure how it works, so I'm going based on a lot of guides I read online, and please forgive me if I get anything wrong here. For Toshiro though, this is a character that goes through quite a lot of evolution just as Zenkichi does, originally having a pretty cynical view of the world until he starts to evolve, adapt, and grow. He is also a human, and his class is a fighter gunslinger, specifically from Matt Mercer's subclass. His background would probably be Outlander to reflect on this combat experience stuff that he gains, and his alignment would be lawful good. For ability scores, I've given him 10 strength, 16 dexterity, 14 constitution, 12 intelligence, 13 wisdom, and 8 charisma, all of which get a +1 for his human racial feature. As for his second language, I'm gonna leave that entirely up to interpretation. For skills, I've given him acrobatics, perception, survival, which is probably the most important for his character, stealth, athletics, and investigation. As a fighter gunslinger, he gets archery, so he has a +2 bonus to attack rolls with ranged weapons, enhancing his sharpshooting abilities. He also gets second wind to regain hit points, and action surge to take an additional action once per short rest. He's proficient with firearms, allowing him to use a variety of ranged weapons, has a number of grit points that can be used to perform special actions such as reloading faster, trick shots, or enhancing attack rolls. He has quick draw, where he can draw his firearm as part of his attack, making it easy to engage in combat, and trick shots, where at higher level he can learn various trick shots to provide different effects like piercing shot or deadeye. For equipment, he'll just get a firearm of his choice, like a pistol or a rifle or whatever works for him that fits the setting, reflecting his proficiency with ranged weapons, and a dagger for close quarters combat just in case. For armor, we'll give him light armor like studded leather for agility and stealth, and as he levels up, he might consider upgrading that to medium. For tools, we'll give him a set of Tinker's tools to represent his ability to maintain and modify firearms. As for magic items, we can probably give him the same stuff that we gave Erina. For role-playing tips, Toshiro could have a backstory that involved a loss or betrayal that leads to his fueled desire to lead and protect others, but he should start the campaign out as a rather cynical, cowardly, potentially afraid of conflict character who thinks it might just be best to lay down arms instead of taking the fight to his opponents. Over time, this should probably change as the story progresses, where he starts to see the light, maybe inspired by his other Phantom Thieves, particularly Erina. Like Zenkichi, he might struggle with his past failures and is driven by a desire to prove himself as a hero and protector in the end. And that is it. Phantom Thieves reimagined for the world of Dungeons & Dragons. By preserving their core traits and adapting their abilities to fit within the D&D mechanics, we've crafted characters that bring the unique flair to any campaign. Now, I did this as a little bit of fun and for not much other reason, but whether you're a DM looking for inspiration or a player to embody one of these iconic characters, I really hope that this helped you. And I wish you luck on your future D&D endeavors, and who knows, maybe I'll make more of these in the future for other franchises I like. I already have ideas for a Danganronpa related one that I might do, but who knows when I'll get around to that. Anyway, thank you for watching, and happy gaming! God, I suck at outros.